thank you for joining us, Tina. Can you introduce yourself and tell everyone what you do here in the Capital Region?
Sure. My name is Dr. Christina Lane. I am the director of the Criminal Investigation Resource Center, and I'm also associate professor of criminal justice, law, and behavior science at Russell Sage College. And my area of expertise is criminology, and that means that I specialize in understanding criminal behavior.
It's got to be very interesting work. And the CIRC Center that you mentioned, that's also at Russell Sage College, correct?
Yes, it is.
Okay. So we'll start with that, actually. Tell us a little bit about how that came about and what you do with the students at the CIRC.
Okay. So how it came about, so Dr. Chris Kunkel, who is associate director, we both developed the concept or the program over at the College of St. Rose at the Cold Case Analysis Center. And we implemented our method in addressing issues with cold cases and slowly developing partnerships with police agencies. So as we know, the College of St. Rose did close, and I continued our method in approaching cold cases at Russell Sage College, and we created the Criminal Investigation Resource Center.
Nice. So, and in this, students get to get involved in cold cases, but there's a little bit that you have to teach them in guidelines and such, correct? They learn a lot about working with law enforcement and what you can and can't know, or what you can and can't share. Can you speak a little bit to that and how that's been interesting for the students to get used to and learn?
Yes, absolutely. So our program, we develop professional products for the police agency. This is not a class at all. This is a true center that is utilized as a resource for police agencies to make better time of when they do have free time to get to these unresolved cases.
Yeah, they kind of have this hand-wrapped little gift from you guys with a bow, like, here you go, here's all the information that we pulled from this piece of evidence.
Exactly. So I'll give you one example. We've been given a case, was like over 6,000 pages, you know, this gigantic cold case from 1964. So we as students and also the professors involved, you know, we had to sit down and many times to get things back on track. Because when you look at a police report, it's not like one police report's the same topic. It jumps from paragraph to paragraph. So we had to figure out innovative ways and tailor it to that particular case so it's ease of access understanding for police agencies. So we actually helped the students figure out ways to actually battle this and figure out a tailored model of organization. Nice. And so that when the police sit down and do the work, they can get right to it even though they just have 2 hours. And if they get called to another homicide, they could come back even 10 days later and they know, boom, right away where they are. Yeah. And another thing that's very much appreciated by police agencies is keyword searching on Adobe. So not only do they have a clear narrative and theme type of organization, they actually can keyword search, okay, let's see how many times this suspect comes in an entire case file.
Wow, yeah, I bet that's helpful. So what has it been like for them? I'm sure it's a little kind of sensationalized, being able to, oh my gosh, we're working on these cases that we've read or seen in, you know, in the news or that we've grown up with. So has it been hard for them as college students to realize like this is a professional product, like you said, or have they really just leaned right into it?
No, the majority of students that we have interacted and worked with and assigned things to do is the students are appreciative. They love to see that they have value and can contribute and make a difference with victims' families and assist police agencies.
Well, and of course, I'm sure that encourages them to go on and further their careers in criminal justice and forensics and even in law enforcement.
Yes, on many levels. You know, I find that when they go for interviews for jobs and it's written there, the students right away are asked, you know, tell me about the center, the work that you did with Dr. Lane and Dr. Kunkel, and they love it. It just shows a whole different level of learning and working with others, teamwork, and understanding that a professional product is actually a higher product than that you would do for any class.
Right, that this is real world. It's almost like an internship heightened, you know, like, yes, you've got the hands-on experience, but this is real. Like, this is going into something, this is going to be in the police officer's hand to look at and to reference. So I'm sure that makes the value, helps them feel the value there.
They do, because they feel You would think that they'd be stressed by this, on one level there, because they
Pressure,
understand it.
yeah.
There is pressure, that this is the real deal.
Yeah.
But it makes them excited to work on it, and they step up. It's wonderful to see that, to the point that they will be there late at night. I had them finding out from security. Oh, security says we could be here 24/7 if we want to. And I'm like,
'cause we're working.
That's
Yeah.
right. I said, okay, but be careful.
But the fact that they're so excited to do that is
Yes.
definitely speaks to the work that you're doing.
Exactly.
So I find it interesting, it seems that especially with cold cases, it's growing in popularity for law enforcement agencies to kind of need to outsource or need to get some additional resources to help them in groups like, the center and the kids. So how has that been? Because it definitely seems like a shift of, law enforcement was kind of close to the chest before, like.
Oh, they still are.
Yeah, so how does that translate in working with you and working with outside entities?
Yes. So I take it very serious in taking, like, some people might say, oh, they're just case files, it's paper. And I'm like, no, it's not. It is true physical evidence. We have security cameras, we have a couple confidentiality agreements, we take precautions, and the students are aware of it.
I remember the classroom doors blocked off so
Yes.
people can't see inside. Yeah.
That's right, no gawkers.
Yeah, but that speaks to how important the work that you're doing
Yeah.
is.
It's a respect to the case. But police agencies, when they see that there's credibility involved, when they see that this is not a class,
They're taking it serious, right?
We're not playing with paperwork, and not only that, they do get a polished product that is reviewed, maybe thrown back to get more work on it, but they get something of the quality in which the degree levels of. I can't say, a PhD makes a difference. If you have a lot of experience, you know what's expected too.
Right.
But with Dr. Kunkel and I, and having the experience we have,
To guide them, yeah.
guide them, and also know this is the product we need, this is good, now let's get to the next step and meet with the police. So they know that we're not there to waste their time and say, can you look at these homework assignments? This is far from a class.
We're trying to help you, yeah.
Exactly.
We've actually done some work.
Because many police agencies say that interns are a lot of work.
Yeah.
And this isn't. This is no
you're
work.
a separate.
Yeah, exactly. We do the work with the interns.
Yeah, and then
We're
we
the
just
little
give
people.
you what you need from that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, talk about a little bit. There's been some success with CIRC so far in terms of helping police. I know you can't share or divulge too much, but can you talk a little bit about the successes that you've seen so far?
Yes, well, the success, so basically, we come into the scenario, I'm not going to tell to say we're going to solve cases. Far from. I truly believe and have faith that the police can solve these cases.
Right.
We're just trying to get this information to them much easier when they have time.
Yeah.
So we have success in the methods of what we've been utilizing. And so the one we worked with the Colony Police Department on the Ruth Whitman case, and this is 1959. And from the work that we've done and also reaching out to our experts, the forensic anthropologist, Dr. Mercedes Fabian, we actually got to the level of actually being able to exhume the victim.
Wow.
And it's impactful. And not only that, we were able to exhume the victim because the victim scratched her attacker. And there was a chance, looking, checking off the boxes,
Yeah.
and with the aid of Dr. Fabian's expertise, that we knew that there's a good possibility that DNA might still be there.
Wow.
And what's really neat is that they did find DNA.
Wow.
And we exhumed the body. I invited 2 students that I believe contributed the most to the case and work. And they were present for the exhumation, also the autopsy of the victim. Also, the victim's family was there. And the wonderful thing there is that they were so appreciative, because initially when I did reach out to the victim's family, they were very upset. They did feel like that the police didn't care, and it wasn't that at all. The police do care.
It's been decades and decades.
Decades, and Colony Police Department, a person came in and they said, well, they mentioned, I want to talk about my aunt's case. And they're like, wait a minute. And we did find that we believed that the case was set aside because they thought the person was incarcerated in Canada. And that's what we think why it was kind of set aside. But we found out at the end, by DNA comparison, it wasn't him. Okay, so it's quite interesting. But from this interaction and listening to the relatives of the deceased or the victim, the family, and this is justice on itself, realized that the police did care. And they didn't disregard the death of a loved one because they were very low income. It had nothing to do with that. And the police were spending all this time and energy to invest in it. And I think that's phenomenal because that's the main point. You know, police
show
haven't
that these
forgotten.
people matter.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
exactly. And I think that the police taking on CIRC is evident that the police do care about these unresolved cases, and they want to move forward on it. However, when you look at these older cases, they are so they're organized not in a thematic way. They're organized by date, and you know, reading things by date doesn't help.
Right? No, it's hard. Yeah, you need it separated. Okay, this is about the crime scene. This is about the suspect interviews. This, you know, just breaking down into categories. So, that's what I need. I can find it here.
Yeah.
So, you spoke about the Whitman case.
Oh, the other case.
Yes.
All right, so we have another case that we're working with Albany Police Department. And as I mentioned to you, it's already public information. And this is one of the first cases that was approached through Albany PD, which we still have partnerships with. And this case, we've been working on it since like December 2018.
Wow.
And we've been working with Commander Melissa Mori, and as she says, it's a slow burn with these cases, especially when you said things in labs. But the wonderful thing of our progress, right now the case is being analyzed by a genealogist. And so right now we are going down and identifying suspect DNA. It is a long process. Yeah. There's nothing easy and simple. Like on TV, they go bang and like, the genealogist,
exactly.
You got it, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, if an unresolved case is that fast to solve, then it was something very simple.
It was right there. Solved. Yeah.
Well, not sure, but the technology was there,
yeah.
right? But in generalities, these cases are so complicated that they take a while, but having the focus and getting the ideas of all individuals and looking at their statements and corroborating statements and saying, well, there's inconsistencies here, and we show the police. You know, that's another thing too. You know, so we've been working on a case for a while, and we've done buccal swabs in the past, and they didn't match, and then finally we said, you know, this has to be a stranger killing based on the presentation of the body. And so right now, fingers crossed. Yeah, it's a little harder to find the stranger, especially in a time period where there are a lot of immigrants. But we're very excited.
Yeah, that's definitely steps in the right direction.
Definitely. And many of the other cases we've worked on with various police agencies, we now have evidence in the labs. We're taking the next steps. And it seems like, well, it appears that we're close.
And it seems from us speaking in the past, you mentioned that two of the most famous Capital Region cold cases, Suzanne Lyall and Jaliek Rainwalker, they both have lead desks, correct?
Yes.
So they are active cases that are being worked on.
Yes, there you go. Those two cases are near and dear to the New York State Police. I am not saying that any other case is not. Each victim has priority. But those cases are active, you know, and I think it's because of family members. Mary Lyall, with the disappearance of her daughter, Suzanne Lyall, in 1998, she has been there, and she strongly believes if you keep it alive in the media, if you sit across to the police once a year and say, so,
where's my daughter?
Exactly. It's kind of like the podcast, I'm not too sure, I think it's Not in My Backyard, Kirsten Smart case.
Yeah.
It was the push. You know, they actually got legislation to come forward, but they did the same thing. And then they were able to find out. Yeah. Exactly. And Mary Lyall and also her past husband were doing the same thing. And she still, despite the passing of her husband, she is still even adamant to sit down with the police and say, what's going on? How you doing? She does bring cookies too. This is the same thing, and they are actually very much invested everything matters. And I can't imagine how frustrating it must be for the police, saying, I really want to get to this, but, they keep getting pulled away by the violence that occurs every day.
Right.
And as I mentioned beforehand, that if a police officer takes longer time to respond to a recent crime, it is harder to solve,
Right.
which is quite compelling.
Yeah.
However, older cold cases, you would think, oh, people are dying and that's it. Well, sometimes when you interview people, they're more willing to talk because they don't have the same constraints anymore. The suspect's not, you're divorced. You're no longer, associated with that individual on some level. You're older, so you're not being harassed by your peers. So, there are advantages of coming back later on.
Yeah, definitely. Well, and that shows with cases that have been cracked open or that have been moved forward by interviews, by new interviews. So there's definitely proof that that makes a difference. So can you, since we just mentioned Suzanne Lyall, a little bit of the details of her case? I know we spoke in the past about why it's been difficult due to the circumstances of her disappearance to kind of nail things down. Can you speak a little to that with the kind of two crime scene possibilities?
Sure. So Suzanne Lyall, she disappeared in 1998. Okay, so it was her second year. She was a sophomore. And it's very different from other missing persons cases, because missing person cases usually you say, well, there's a risk here. Dysfunctional family, the person's involved in drugs, the person suffered from a mental illness or depression. But Susie was a regular student trying to figure out college, struggling too at that moment because she really needed to figure out computer programming, and that is another language all to itself, right?
Yeah, and especially in 1998, I can imagine how kind of in its infancy it was a little more difficult to wrap your head around.
Exactly. And she had a quite solid routine because she was somewhat, I wouldn't say introverted is not the right word. She was to herself, but yet she was more willing. If you talked to her, she'd talk, right?
Yeah.
And she wouldn't act like I don't want to
talk
talk
anymore.
Not as
outgoing.
Exactly. And, she worked at the computer store in Crossgates Mall. And she worked there the night she went missing. So she left Crossgates Mall. She arrived at SUNY Albany. She left work early in order to study for exams, which any college student would try to do, right? And get out of it, but you do have to make money too. And they believe that an eyewitness saw her at SUNY Albany. And she was pressed, this eyewitness, 3 times, and she still contended that she saw Susie get off the bus. Okay. But that's eyewitness testimony. Now, eyewitness testimony, even though you press people hard, yes, I understand that method and that technique. But nowadays, we're starting to find that eyewitness testimony is not enough.
Yeah.
There are other things of evidence, like a name tag, lanyard that was found in the parking lot. However, you still have to kind of wonder, it might be another place.
Yeah, or it might have been planted there, or we had spoken about how it seemed like since she was so routine, whoever did something to her likely knew her routine, and that she had even mentioned someone was following her, or that she felt like she was being watched.
Yes.
So they would know, well, even if she didn't make it to SUNY, this is where she would have been going, so let's throw police off, or, who knows.
Exactly. So, yes, for this case, and when you read online, they always go to the boyfriend. Now, the boyfriend's always suspected in everything, but you got to admit this, and then statistically too, is that the person most likely to hurt you is someone who loves you, because things get volatile. Emotions and
passion
anger
gets involved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Passion's involved, so they're more likely to get frustrated and go to that next step by accident or on purpose, right?
Hopefully not.
Yeah, exactly.
But it happens.
It does happen. Yeah. So yes, you can't avoid that, but you can't focus on it because the eyewitness, yes, exactly. It could be because of the mention of the person stalking her. Not only that, there is evidence, as the podcast of True Crime Bullshit, and also Dr. Chris Kunkel, is identifying that Israel Keys was in the area when Susie went missing. So, and it's really hard to disregard it no matter how hard you try. Now, the rule of thumb with cold cases, if you find a serial killer, you ignore them.
Likely not.
No,
Yeah.
exactly. It's like, no, and you push him over and say no,
Yeah.
but Keys keeps coming back. You know, Susie
There are
was
too many things that make sense.
Exactly, and Keys was on the internet all the time. Susie was on the internet all the time. Susie worked at a GameStop, Babbage's, and Keys would be likely to go. He used to travel to get access to the internet, and that's what the store was like. You know, in 1998, come on
Like
over.
an internet cafe.
Yeah, exactly. You know, kids come play games, and you like the game so much, you're going to buy them.
Exactly.
You know, it is a good method and tactic as a business. So you can see him probably going to that store. He may have known
time
her.
there, right?
Exactly. Then you take the next step here, stalking. Well, he did like stalking his victims. Not only that, is that he was the same age as her, and he was in the area.
So it wouldn't have been so strange. It's not like it was a man 50 years her senior, kind of like
No.
lurking in the shadows. He could have blended in as a student or as a gamer, like you said.
Exactly. And she may have been in her chat rooms. And okay, it's called Name is 44. And this is the list of 44 names that they found on Israel Key's computer.
Wow.
Susie's name is on it. So, and he likes searching his victims and see what's going on. And Dr. Conkle could elaborate a lot more on that. But then you take the next step here. Where did Susie walk to get to the bus? Now, Crossgates Mall is very different today.
Yes.
Yes, but if you walk from where she was and took the back hall and where you would exit out of, and you would see all these garbage bins and that, and you would stop and, I don't know if it's just me as a criminologist, but I would go,
This looks like a crime scene.
yeah, exactly. If I want to steal someone, I would steal them here.
Yeah.
It's low lit, you can't see from the parking lot,
It's
and
farther away from people and things where you wouldn't really hear as much.
yeah, exactly. And the interesting thing is that, you know, people will think you'd fight if you were being taken. Most cases, people don't fight. It's as sad as is, you don't know until it happens.
Yeah.
And
Too late and you're already incapacitated.
and not only that, you know, people, you know, the concept of fighting in a scenario, and you think if you just agree, you'll survive.
Right.
It's hard, right? You don't really know until it's going to happen.
I feel like the fight or flight comes in where, do I think I can beat this person? Then
Yeah.
maybe I should fight, or should I just, like you said, comply and hope that that gets me a ticket out of here?
Exactly, and he may have a good lure, you know, or con, or I say, hey, Susie, you know.
Or they may have interacted. Like you said, they could have been friendly enough where she didn't feel threatened
Exactly.
when he approached her.
And because her lifestyle was so routine, that's great for a stalker. He knows where to find her, knows where to look for her. And then we have the campus. She could have been taken there too. Now, one thing, it could have been somebody who knew her in her close circle, right? It could have been someone come calling to her and say, hey, Susie, and that's where her name tag was found. True. But also, Israel Keys could have been, if you see there, you can drive right along the quad there, right there, and she's walking to the quad. She wouldn't go to the back part of it because it's dark. There used to be a lot of trees there. And because I remember, because I went to grad school there during that time frame, and I'm like, not going that direction. Exactly. But if you cut to the trees to the back, you go down this dark stairwell and that. And as a young girl, I wouldn't go there.
Yeah.
You know, I didn't want to go there by late 20s. So, so she probably went to the front, and then she walked up the stairs to her dorm on the other side. And so you could have just driven up and say, hey, Susie.
Yeah.
Right? Or he could have been just leaning against his car right there. You know, so there are two scenarios that need to be considered. I know they are being considered. But you can't just say it is just this. But you can't overlook people that were close to her because of their behavior. And people behave in a bizarre way. And it doesn't mean that they did it.
It's strange. Yeah.
Exactly. Or, you know,
but when you're looking into, when you're looking into crime scenes and scenarios where someone is missing or killed, every little piece of behavior is something of note. So it makes people even seem more bizarre, something that may have not been, like, as sketchy. It's like, well, your girlfriend's missing and you're acting kind of strange. Like, maybe you act strange all the time, but you're acting strange right now, so you're a suspect.
Exactly. And then there's also the other people who don't act strange, and they did it. So it's really difficult to weed through how people respond.
Yeah.
And just basing on how they respond is not enough. Many people say, what about this? I gave this idea. It's a good one. I'm like, it's a good idea, but the logic doesn't fit.
But,
And then the
once
science
you carry
doesn't
it
back it
out,
up.
yeah.
The science doesn't back it up, because that's when it comes to the court of law. Some people might get frustrated, the police, and I tell the students, the police response to that statement would be, prove it. And you don't say that in a regular conversation, right, when you're talking to people, like, oh, how rude, right? Oh, but that's the burden of
that's
proof
what they're going to
court.
think, yeah.
They need proof beyond reasonable doubt.
Right.
So prove it. We need something solid here. Or else nothing can happen.
Like, it can be the most logical, sensible, yes, this seems like the clear, cut and dry answer, but without, this is the evidence. This shows that this is the clear, cut and dry answer. It doesn't count.
Exactly.
Which leads me to one of our other cases that many people feel that way about Jelik Rainwalker. His family members, his grandmother, Barbara really included, feel very strongly that his adoptive father had something to do with his disappearance. So how is something like that navigated by, you as a criminologist and also law enforcement from what you've seen? How do they continue to work through a case when there's so much outside push for one person?
Well, with the community push, which I understand because I started working on the case because I do live in the community area where he went missing. So with Jelik Rainwalker, that case is difficult. There is a lot of circumstantial evidence, but there is no body. Now, the concept of no body cases, the ones that are successfully processed or tried, there's a crime scene. It's obvious. Oh, there's blood. Oh, there's something here. We can tell that violence really occurred.
Right. Even though we can't find the body, something bad happened.
Exactly. Now, with Jaliek Rainwalker, it's there, right? It's there, but I can understand why they want to wait a little bit. There's still something out there.
There's something that's going to be that aha moment.
Exactly. And to push it through. So I would rather be a little bit careful on one level to prosecute than, just going ahead. Because if it fails,
right. Then
he's
there's the
free.
Devastation. Right, exactly. Then there is no hope.
Exactly. I have full faith that all the physical evidence that was collected, there are things there that can still be done. So, and not only that, Jaliek Rainwalker was never taken. It does not, through deductive logic, that he ran away. He was a biracial child in a predominantly rural white community. And he had blonde hair and green eyes. So this is a kid that would step out.
Little boy.
Yes, he is. Very beautiful. And if he was walking along, I would notice him. And, because he'd stick out. Right, exactly. He can't disappear. And he was 11 or 12 years old. He was 12. So, even based on my
couldn't really survive.
He couldn't survive, and there was no evidence. So no bikes were stolen, no food, there was nothing.
Anything, yeah.
And they also searched every body of water in the area, just in case he was walking between the Battenkill golf course and he fell in. Every scenario.
Right.
Yeah, and they looked everywhere. So, but with that case, there are still places they can go with that. And the New York State Police, I know they are interested in going in the different places there. In the one podcast that we did with the Times Union, the Eagle, we did take him for a walk on Colfax Mountain. And that was something that was a possibility because the neighbors saw very strange activity by an individual who was good friends with the suspect. And so we looked there and we found some possible places with the forensic anthropologist of clandestine graves. So there's something to look at and wonder about. So as long as there's still wonders when it comes to the case, it still can move forward. And the nice thing is that it's being thought about. It is being considered. The one difficult thing, like people say, just send the dogs, right? No, it gets really difficult doing that.
Right.
Most dogs aren't trained as true cadaver or bone dogs. And so they have to really find these specially trained dogs. And actually they burn out quite quickly. Yeah, if they go past 2 hours or so on, they're done. And there's some people run the dogs for hours and they won't find anything.
Yeah, and then it's pointless.
Yeah, it is.
Time.
And dogs get depressed.
Yeah.
Right? They're like, I'm not finding anything.
Yeah, like,
and you're like,
I'm
no,
gonna
good
give up.
boy. And and you have to reinforce them, do some other training, and then bring them back to this possible scene in question.
So it seems like it would be more productive to actually have these okay, this is this set area that we're going to search, instead of just, okay, let's go to this broad, overarching kind of region
It'll take forever
here.
to search. You have to have
Pinpointed at least areas.
exactly. So they have ideas. They're moving forward on it and stuff. So it's really exciting to see the momentum and interest that's occurring.
Yeah, definitely. Speaking to his grandmother, she said, anytime anyone talks about the case in a public manner, the police still get calls and that people are still searching for answers for him. And it was sad, she said, ever since a year after he went missing, she had gotten the first call that a body had been found and they were trying to determine whether or not it could have been Jaliek. And she said, it's a strange way to live when you're getting excited about calls for remains found, that's hope for you, because she's like, I just want to lay him to rest and let people know that he lived and that he was here and that he had a life.
Exactly. And, when you talk to Mary Lyall, she'll talk about that too. Her and her husband got tired of the calls about remains because it never turned out to be Susie. And she was saying, she told them, don't tell me anymore unless you know
unless
for sure.
you find out, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And she does have a story to tell, she was called there and it was a woman in an oil drum who was in 1920s or 40s costume and coins. Yeah, with one of those swing dresses.
Mm-hmm.
Right, far from Susie.
Yeah.
All right, and so, it's things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is with the public.
You get your hope up and then, or you get devastated all over again.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. So it's I could never imagine what it's like to have a missing loved one, especially a missing loved one that it seems that something horrible happened to them. But wondering what happened, I can't imagine.
Yeah.
Where are they?
Every day,
Mm-hmm.
it's bad enough to miss someone, but to not know where they are and what happened to them, I can't imagine.
Yes, and I know Barbara really talked about how much she every day would try to find answers, every day. And she said it really consumed her. Mm-hmm. And I can see that. Yeah. Why? Of course it would.
Yeah. And she even, to the point where she said she felt guilty moving to Florida because even though, she knew she wasn't out there physically every day searching for him, she just felt like leaving the area was just leaving him behind.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's heartbreaking.
It is. And with these missing persons cases that come out, it's kind of like a fine line. You want to have the information out there so your child stays alive. But then sometimes other organizations get involved that could be problematic to the case. Mm-hmm. And it's great that they're trying to help, but it gets problematic because they can actually void evidence.
Yeah, we spoke about that before.
Exactly.
That stepping over that line of, we're piecing things together, or we're stepping on toes and we're ruining chances of prosecution and justice. It's a fine line.
There is a fine line, and you have to have faith that the police are working on it,
doing their job.
Exactly, and I know with the cases we just talked about, Rainwalker and Lyall, they are working those cases. I know that, and they should have faith in the police. I think that's one thing that some people assume the police aren't doing anything, And in the Kristen Smart podcast, they were saying active on ongoing. It sounds like something that's repetitive.
Yeah,
right?
it sounds like it's something they just say. But even to speak to that, I have been doing these little 60-second missing person or unsolved homicide cases, and I have been saying reach out to New York State Police, and I actually had the Saratoga County Sheriff's Office contact from their cold case or their unsolved crime unit and say, hey, actually, we're working on this case. Please tell people to reach out to us. Wonderful. And it was a case from 20 years ago. And I was like, I'm so sorry. I just automatically assumed I got the information from state police, but they're like, no, we're working on this case.
Which case was it?
Christina White.
Oh, in Hammond. Yeah.
So
that's
likely
the
connected.
They still own the case.
Yeah. So I felt so bad. I was like, oh, sorry. I didn't mean to direct people the wrong way, but it was so good
the information would have been passed on.
To hear that, oh, they're working on this. Here I'm thinking, yes, I know that, like we said, police are working on these things, but I just picked a case that was timely for the summertime. She had gone missing around this time, and then they're like, no, we're working that. So it was great to hear, and it proves that, like you said, even though they're not sharing every little detail or saying every week, hey, we're still working on this, they are.
Yes, exactly. And the one thing you can view it as is that the more quiet they get about the case, the more active it is. So you can't.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's a good thing.
They don't want to share. Yeah. Right. It means that there's
they want it to
there.
Be successful in prosecution, especially with the parameters of discovery and evidence. It's heightened level that you have to get to make in criminal court. So there are, they're doing it for a good reason. And this is why, going back to CIRC, I think it's wonderful, that they're willing to use the model and the program that Dr. Kunkel are doing, and it's even more flattering that they say that was
they
useful.
Trust you,
They trust us, but they said it's useful. I'm like, that is great.
Great. Yeah, exactly. I thought it was, but I'm glad you did too.
Definitely. And then they were very happy with it. And some cases we can, we process through and get them moving just in a few months. Yeah. So it is quite rewarding in that sense.
So before I let you go, how, as much as you can, tell us what everyone at CIRC is working on right now as you get the new semester started.
Okay, what can I tell you? See, after us talking about the police, here I am going, I don't know.
We're working. But even just an area of...
So we have formal partnerships with police agencies, about 10 police agencies. So yes, we are working about 10 homicides.
So you're not busy at all.
No, not busy at all. And we are also working, as you mentioned, Suzanne Lyall, Jaliek Rainwalker. I do have plans to reach out to Barbara Reilly again. But we have worked on it in the past. Yeah. And we're also working on Chelsea Cobo, who went missing in New York City in 2017.
Okay.
And it's the same scenario because you have these parents, as we're talking about, they have to do something. They just can't sit back and assume stuff's going to happen. And that makes sense. So they collect a lot of information through the years. So we also offer the service to them. Let us organize this for you.
Yeah.
Let us put this together so you know what's going on
and what you
with
have.
your child.
Right.
And how they went missing. So we're working with that, and we're also doing that with Mary Lyall. There's a lot of information that she has passed on to us, and also the social media is a wonderful platform to look into things. You can look up everybody's social networks, whatever posts were on Facebook. It's quite insightful.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure more so helpful with the 2017 than the 1998
Actually,
missing person.
Because with Susie.
Well, you said she was online a lot and had a presence.
She was online a lot, but it was not even her presence. It's what everybody is saying
about her.
Yes, about her. So you look at what everybody else is saying, and over all the years and all the time that Mary and Doug would come out,
things have been brought up. Yeah,
and sometimes something will come out. Okay, so let's say. I'll just use Israel Keys as an example. Okay, so not saying that it's definitely him, right? he would go on the internet after he would kill his victims and post things on victims' websites. And they would be aggressive on some level. And so, you know, we also, I know True Crime Bullshit's also doing this. And you look at what posts were made and see like, oh, that could be Israel Keys. Because he liked taunting, you know, as some killers do. Or you can have someone that might know something and says something, you're like, wait a minute, that might be something a little bit more real.
Yeah, like that's not just a mindless comment.
Exactly. And some of the information that's out there, like Suzanne Lyall's case on Wikipedia, that's quite the good rendition of her case.
Interesting.
Yeah. You know, so
and that's something that can be edited.
Yeah, and I look at it, we looked at it, I'm like, who wrote this? You know,
these seem to be details.
There's details in there, and how do they know all these details? So it's quite, the internet's interesting. You know, what people post. Of course, students say, you know, they get down the rabbit hole of Reddit. We all been there, right? And sometimes you have to say, no, stop.
Yeah, like now you've gone too far.
You've gone too far. Yeah,
this
exactly.
Is reaching. Yeah.
This is more entertainment than anything else. You know, you have to be objective.
Fiction.
Exactly.
Yeah, like, well, this may have happened. No, let's figure out things that really may have happened.
Truly, and the students learn that to discern that.
Yeah.
You know, no, that's not
like,
true.
that's not really plausible. Like both of these claims sound crazy, but this one could actually happen, and this one is just totally in left field.
Exactly. So it is funny with some of the students. You know, they go, well, this person said, I'm going to kill you just like so and so, and you're like, no, it doesn't mean he killed her.
It means they've heard of that story.
Just, well, I can't say just, but it's a person mad at his girlfriend or wife just spewing stuff. You can't just go run with that.
Yeah.
Because it's
oh my God,
amazing
this person is
exactly.
a murderer.
Yeah, that's right. And it's amazing how often that is in the cases.
I can imagine, especially like you said with social media, that can run rampant very quickly.
It can. And I know I've been asked questions about, you know, we did a crime night over in Saratoga, right? It was an evening. And one person said, well, besides money, okay, because donating is good, right? Well, as the CIRC Center, or also the initial intent of the Cold Case Analysis Center before I left, all the money and the donation of the money, and it did say that the money was supposed to be given for forensic techniques for cases that we're working on. And there's nothing wrong with that. So sometimes, you know, I do get a call and say, do you know how to maybe raise funds for this, right? Or we would look into grants and write grants for police agencies too. So, you know, money helps with technology.
Yeah.
It goes around bureaucratic processes too.
Yeah.
You know, someone donating. But it's really hard for that true crime person to say, well, do this, you know, go off and investigate.
Right.
I think the best thing is to keep that person's name alive. Because even sometimes the parents are tired and they're not doing it as much anymore, and it hurts. And so if there is a case out there, keep it alive, keep it out in the media in some way, you know, and reach out to the parents to keep them not hopeful but invested.
To let them know, that you're not the only one that cares, and you're not the only one that remembers.
Exactly. And you know, but you know, when you talk to Chris, he will. They have this neat thing. I'm stuck in his rookies. I'm sorry. It's on the topic, right?
Yeah, I brought it up. It's my fault.
There's other things to talk about. I think I talk about John Regan too. We should talk about him too. He's had murder kits. So not only would he kill, he was really into the stalking and following people. So he would have these 5-gallon Home Depot pails, and he would have like guns and ropes and stuff like that in there. And so he would hide them. Doesn't necessarily came back and killed the people he intended, right? So a new thing that came up from the podcast of True Crime Bullshit is that people started to look for these murder kits. And, you know, nothing wrong with that.
But,
there's-
don't go on private property, and, there are rules.
It's not like Pokemon Go, you know
Right,
how
you
far that
can't
went.
just-
You gotta respect.
exactly, yeah.
Or in some cases, we know who did it, but we don't have enough evidence. But what if that person's innocent?
Right.
And
you
you're
ruin
making
their lives.
Yeah, you do. And so you gotta be careful, but there's still things that can be done.
Yes.
Just
in moderation or in within boundaries.
within boundaries, respect for the law. Understand you can ruin a complete case, doesn't matter what you found. There'd be questions there, like, look what I found, and you bring it, like, how do we know we took it from there?
Yeah, and how do
Right.
we know you didn't have it all this time
Yeah.
to make yourself a
Exactly.
suspect?
Or did you drop it there on purpose?
Right. Are you
there's
just trying to get some 15 minutes of fame?
and that's all the defense needs. That little hole to get into, and just
And then
blows
you'll
the
start to
case.
pick away at your character, and all of a sudden this
Yeah.
person is totally not credible.
Exactly.
There's some internet crazy person.
Definitely, so there is a warning with the true crime audience, but it doesn't mean you shouldn't stay invested,
Right.
because these cases need to be out there.
Well, and the interest clearly from viewership and people getting involved is, I think, is a testament in itself that even if you're just watching these things, you're keeping them alive because people are going to keep doing them. So,
And if you're in the community, there's nothing wrong, because there are organizations. There's Justice for Jaliek, and they're motivated there to keep his name alive. They're there at fairs. They have a table there. They got a bench for him. There's all these different ways to keep missing children or even adults. You can't forget about them.
Yes.
Alive.
all right.
Any other questions?
Not for now.
Not for now. Yeah. You can ask Chris about John Regan.
Okay.
Yeah. For Susie.
Okay.
Like possibilities.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. He may have been active in the area.
Ah.
Liked redheads. Timeline doesn't mesh, but here's another guy. You got Keys, but then there's this other guy.
Right.
Yes.
That's still a possibility. So you
Yeah.
can't narrow your focus.
Yeah, and his method, he would drive around like in a minivan with his murder kit in it, like tarps, binding stuff, and barbiturates to sedate. Like he very
So he was. I was gonna say he was ready. Yeah.
He's civilly confined right now, so it's
Oh,
good.
that's good.
Yeah, never get out. But if you look on the Lindsay Ferguson
Okay.
case, you can read about that's what he got caught with.
Okay.
Yeah, but he had a whole
Yeah,
history.
Those cases are always just like you said with the students. Those are always so interesting to me. I watched something the other day about, it was really strange, like 2 of the brothers had become serial killers, and like the father had possibly been a serial killer, but it was this crazy story. But
No kidding.
yeah, we said clearly there was something in the DNA or the water there or something, but the one guy didn't get caught for 12 years in between what they believe was the first one and the one he got caught for. So there were all these, 10 different cases that they brought up, like these are all unsolved and fit in with your MO and timeline, and the guy was like completely crazy and didn't want to talk, and also very manipulative, so knew what to do and knew what to say and not to say. But it was just that idea of all of these things, and they didn't get caught. Here's the first one that we're now catching with the last one, but we don't know anything in between. So
Well, exactly. And when you catch these people red-handed, by the level of organization and what they've done.
That
They
this isn't
did
the
it
first
before.
one.
Exactly. But they avoided detection.
right.
And this is the other thing is there's the one, serial killer, Robert Garrow. And he was active. And you can say, well, he was active in this area and there are missing kids in this area. And with his buried bodies case, he did confess that, hey, I killed more people and I'm going to show you, defense attorney, where they
exactly.
are, right? So there are a lot of questions about these killers that are so organized, not willing to talk because they like to have the control.
Exactly.
That they
it's
live
part
off
of
that.
it's part of the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. And that
You
they
still
killed
didn't
more.
catch me.
Yeah, but when you finally do get them, that's great. But then you say that that they hurt other people along the way. And true.
And you may not find all those.
But you can't just incarcerate somebody
And
Or
say,
you
yeah,
think
we
they did it.
think you committed
Yeah.
10, but we've only got you for 2.
Exactly, and there were people who went to trial through court, and they knew for sure, oh yeah, he did it, and then through DNA, you
Right.
get exonerated.